It's no good when you can't hear the speaker, I guess, if he has something to say. Maybe I do, so I'll try to speak out loud. Practical actions and demonstrations. The student rebellion. My name is Christian Gergils, and that was the topic I'm supposed to say something on. My background, I started with politics just 4 years ago in a small student organization in Stockholm called the Free Moderate Students. Well, moderation was not really the leading word when I was there, but the reason the name is Free Moderate Students is that the single conservative liberal party in Sweden is called the Moderates, and this organization was kind of a part of it. Nowadays I work with something called the Frihetsfronten, and this is explained in this little book with an independent combat unit struggling for individual freedom and capitalism. Well, my English tells me that a combat unit is kind of like Rambo running around with machine guns. We don't do that. We work very peaceful, but we of course fight for capitalism and individual freedom. What we did within this student organization is that we started some actions involving breaking the law. That's not very difficult in Sweden. There are many laws to be broken, but still, I think that what I'm going to say here is useful, and it's the same will probably be used in all countries, because the Swedish model, the Swedish welfare state, is not so different from, for example, the US or the Great Britain. As a student organization, we thought maybe we should do something a little provocative, like students always have done. Starting a radio station was a good idea, because, well, of course, freedom of speech is important, and in Sweden we have all those laws that decided only the state can start radio stations. That was our big goal for this autumn session. When I started as the head of this organization, the radio station was the big thing. But during the summer, when the students were out of Stockholm, we had to do something also. So we thought, we open a bar in the street in Stockholm. Because, well, maybe you have seen Stockholm, you heard about it, a lot of tourists, and we have some large streets where there are no cars, and fine, we did it. We started the bar a Saturday afternoon. We just put a table on the street and with a little cloth roof on it, and we started selling. Well, it doesn't sound like very much, and it wasn't, but still it was, because beer and wine is something a little secret in Sweden, and to combine politics with alcohol is very, very no-no. So media was there covering up, and the state television, thank you, state television, the state radio, all the big news programs and the big newspapers were there. And it was a big thing. All of a sudden, there were those moderate students standing on the street selling alcohol. They were breaking the law. We were breaking the law. And since this conservative party, the moderates, not at all known for libertarian ideas, in media this connection between the big conservative party and their small student organization was very nice to blow up. And there we stood, telling everyone that it's okay to break the law. Fine, we do it because the law is not just. The state does not have the right to decide whether we sell alcohol or not. We don't force anyone. It is actually not a crime. And this really made an influence on the Swedish debate for a short while. When we started the radio station a few months later, which was the big thing, and I mean, of course, alcoholic laws, okay, I don't like them, but freedom of speech is somewhat more important. It is even more important. But that was almost forgotten. No one, well, a few media followed it up, but not much. But those two things made this moderate party become very furious. They didn't like it at all. Breaking the law in Sweden is not very good, and doing it within this conservative party is even worse. And what happens, maybe all of you, or some of you know how an organization works. Here we were 5, 6 people that really wanted to do something and to fight for the ideas. But at the same time, there were all of those others, no people that wanted peace within the party and within the organization. And as I understand, those of you working within the Libertarian Party, for example, in the US, has also always gotten those problems that people want different things. Parties and organizations in that way are counterproductive. So we started the Freedom Front, or I did together with a couple of other guys that really felt for libertarian ideas. And the Freedom Front then is not a party, it's just an organization which tries to influence people, which tries to take part in the debate and really show people what we believe in and what is right. For example, now we started a pub, or a big pub in Stockholm, or a party local. It's probably as big as this place, 300 square meters. And of course it's illegal. You cannot sell beer in your own home in Sweden. And it is not ever allowed to sell beer in a place after 3 o'clock at night. But young people, party people, they want to drink beer after 3 o'clock at night. In Stockholm they do, at least. So right now we have, for every Friday, Saturday, 300 or 400 persons partying in the Freedom Front locals in Stockholm. This spring there was a police razzia, and then there was another one. What we had done was only this: we sold beer. 30 policemen coming down with guns, with dogs, 10 cars standing, police cars, police vans standing outside because we were selling beer. Okay, fine. They took me and some other guys to the police station for hearings and all that. And we were released. Okay, we kept on going, of course. We kept on going the next Friday and the next Saturday, and they were there again. Same thing. away to the police station. And I mean, my thing is always to say nothing. Okay, you want to ask me questions, fine, I'm not answering. I can tell you my name, my date of birth, but that's all. And that makes the police furious, because they don't get anything out of me, and they don't get anything out of the others. And we have what we call a direct democratic organization of this pub, which means that we have no leader, and we have no one that stands above anyone else. That means that every person that is a member of this pub is actually on the highest level. So they cannot find anyone who is actually responsible. And they can't do anything. We keep on doing this. We still have the pub going. We had 400 people there Friday and as many Saturday. And it's huge parties. And maybe, I mean, to focus only on alcohol sounds a little strange or stupid. And of course, with the pub, we do that. But we get people there that are interested in ideas. If we get 2,000 people through this local every month, of course, those that are interested in ideas get to know us and get to read books. And I would say that is what is important with breaking laws and by acting and working libertarian without the party system, from outside, and don't go in to the party system is very important, because to get acceptance from those that set the agenda for tomorrow, then you will not ever be successful if you stand on the same place as all those other politicians. The problem, of course, with breaking law is whether you have the right. Is it right to break the law? I would turn it the other way around and say that as a libertarian, you cannot do anything but break the law in a country like Sweden or in a country like the US or Great Britain or anywhere else. Because we will not be reliable if we don't. Because what does it mean to say that people have rights? What is the meaning? Of course, the meaning is that the state or the majority does not have the right to interfere with our lives or with our rights. And if we actually believe that it is wrong when the state steals, or when the state uses force against peaceful people, then the logical connection is that we cannot follow the laws. And it is a very important part, maybe the most important part of the libertarian work today, to tell people that they do not have to follow the laws and the rules of the state. Because you can't say, oh gosh, they steal our money and they take our children and put them in this disgusting government school or socialist school and just accept it. You can't do that. It's not reliable. And you can't say, many people, many politicians, so-called liberal or conservative politicians, say that, oh, the humans are socialized. and just accept it. You can't do that. It's not reliable. And you can't say we have no freedom of speech. In Sweden we have a big debate right now on this freedom of speech thing with radio stations and TV stations. But still, the total political establishment, they accept the law as it is. And those so-called libertarians seem to do the same. There are two parts of breaking the law that are important. It is self-defense, and it is as a political matter to use civil disobedience in trying to convince people. And the goal, of course, is to make people lose their respect for the state. And to understand that they, as human beings, as individuals, have human rights. But the problem is that almost always there is no one telling people that they actually have the rights, and there is no one telling people that the state doesn't have the rights, and there is even fewer that show this and live this way in their political and their private life. But that is important. It is very important. Of course, you always have those no's. People telling that you cannot break the law for different reasons. And one is this idea of how to work politically. We have to seem respectful, because we have to convince people in the parliament, we have to convince people working in the political parties that freedom, individual liberty is the right thing. And then we can't go out there in the street breaking the laws. That's not acting respectful. And those no people, they say that it's chaos and anarchy. No one will believe that this is a sound idea if you act in that way. And I say, bullshit. Because it is never and cannot be our thing to convince the whole political system, or even a part of it, that the ideas are right. We have to start in a different way. The people that change the mentality of people, the way to think in a society, is never politicians, is not political organizations, is not my Freedom Front, and is not the Libertarian Party or whatever. It is different persons, individuals like actors, like musicians, authors, cultural people. Those are the ones that change mentality in society. And we can only reach to those people by standing beside the political system and doing what we actually believe in. Then some say, no, you cannot break the laws. That's very, maybe sometimes you can find, like in Nazi Germany or so, an example where you could break the law. But in general, no. Because then you lose the respect for the important laws. And if you think that people should follow some of the laws, you cannot yourself break others. That's really, really stupid. Because what are those other laws? They are disrespect. They are the opposite of respect. And since what this person says is that we have to respect each other we have to respect each other's property and life. And therefore, we cannot break the laws that don't respect life and property. This argument, I would say, is really out in the blue. In Sweden, we have had a debate recently on moral debt, I think. I'm not sure of the word, but moralisk skuld, moral debt. Who is responsible for what has happened in Sweden? And who is responsible for what happened in the Eastern Europe? Who is responsible for communism and socialism? And they have been putting through all those authors and other musicians that really were Marxists and believed in those ideas and praised the communist China because it was so great. And in Sweden, the same thing. All those authors and other people that really believed in communism or socialism. And the problem then is, of course, they are responsible. All those people are responsible for what happened because they believed in those ideas. But all of those, what about us? Those that sat in the parliament saying, no, we shouldn't vote for that law. We shouldn't steal people's money. But still accepting it. Those are, in my point of view, morally more responsible because they accepted the system and they let the laws through. So what I would recommend is to leave the political parties and to leave the system and to work from outside. And to act on the free market, the really free market of ideas, where you don't have to look on that side and the other side and to listen what other people think. And you shouldn't moderate. You should do exactly what you believe in and show it within the political life of yourselves and within the private lives of yourselves. And that is breaking laws and showing people that they have the right to break laws because they have the right to their own lives. Thanks. Thank you. Well, questions, please.
You advocated breaking laws. Would you then suggest to the people who are younger than you are, who do not really know the difference between good laws and bad laws and moderate laws, how they go about doing that? I ask this question because I think there are two youngsters here today as well.
Okay. Well, young people always are a problem, and you cannot solve it with the state at all. I mean, if your kids go out and do stupid things, you're responsible, and you are the one that should know what is right and what is wrong. But the important thing is that everyone knows what is right and what is wrong in their personal life. And probably most young people, when they do something that is not good, they are aware that they're doing wrong. So I actually don't see the problem. I've met the argument many times that people shouldn't be able to understand what laws are good and what laws are bad. But people aren't that stupid. And we have within our culture this very deeply rooted knowledge of what the human rights are. So I'd say that that problem is not very big. Oh, yes, Einar, please.
I think that you were first.
Okay.
Me, okay? I was wondering whether your strategy for promoting freedom is one that where you seem to rely on campaigns and doing spectacular things and generally making a nuisance of yourself.
Making a nuisance.
A nuisance. I don't know. A nuisance. Right? I mean, making all sorts of trouble. It might be amusing.
No,
okay.
And news.
And news. Yes, of course. You do all this to attract attention. But all in all, it means you have to do things that you would not otherwise do. You do it to create an effect. And I'm wondering whether this really leads you to really adopting a fairly unnatural lifestyle. The reason I say that is that I've seen the rising importance of flash campaigns in politics. A up-and-coming member of the youth part of the Progress Party in Norway recently had his photograph taken in the nude in front of the Oslo town hall for no other purpose, of course, than to gain attention. So I wonder whether you have reflections on the pitfalls of making a public nuisance of yourself.
Well, of course, as I said, I believe that there are two parts of civil disobedience. It's self-defense on one hand and a very effective way to participate in the political debate on the other hand. And of course you'll do things that you wouldn't do normally. And I think all of us do. Those working intellectually would probably be doing something more useful if we already had a free society. Many of us. I mean, those of us working with trying to break down the arguments from the socialists, we would do something else. But this leads me to another thing. Of course, I still think to stand nude outside of the parliament, I don't really understand the point. Okay, Norway is a little strange that way. So you have all your moral and rather much Christian laws, and I guess it's forbidden to be nude in Oslo or so. But that was not the thing, I guess. But it is very important to get a message through at the same time. I mean, that is the reason why I break the law. And that's why I can't see really the point of standing nude in front of the parliament. I saw a problem when I started, or after a while, when we had done the radio station, the bar in the street thing, and a couple of other smaller things. I was considered a political clown, just a stupid guy breaking the law because he felt, well, he thought it was funny or so. And you always have to balance so that you really get the ideas through. And when you break the laws, if you get the effect that media covers it, what you can get out of it in second hand is to use the interest that the first action has created among people by writing articles, by publishing books or booklets. And we have done that a lot. We are giving out our magazine, Nyliberalen, the neoliberal or so, libertarian. And we are publishing this booklet that says in here, "Are you stupid?" Just to show people and to show journalists and commenting journalists that there are two parts. There are the ideas that are very strong and that we believe in, and there are the actions too. Please.
Do you still have that radio station?
No. The radio station, what happened was that we started the station on Friday. And we were sending for like 6 hours. And then we quit, went home, and got back on Saturday, started sending, and well, there were always all people calling on the phone and saying like, "Great, go on," and so. All of a sudden, my sister, who was listening to this radio station, called and said, "Now it's gone. The signal, we can't hear anything." Okay, so I hung the phone up, and immediately someone else rang, and it was a neighbor from the other side of the street. This was a rather tall house in the old town of Stockholm, and we had the antenna on top of the roof. And this neighbor calling said that, "Oh, now there's someone out on the roof, so I think it's now it's gone. Now they'll kick you out of the air." So I was really furious. There was someone actually up on the roof ruining our antenna. So I ran out of the door, and there were at the same time from the next door 3 really big guys coming out dressed in tie and well, they were from the special force. The Stockholm police special force, those that deal with terrorists and really bad stuff. So what they had done was that they cut the antenna off on the roof, and then when I got out, they took my keys and unlocked the door and went down there, and they handcuffed me to the stairway, and they took all our things away. And we are still waiting for the trial, because, as I usually say, that the law system in Sweden, the justice system, is socialized also, so it takes a lot of time. This was many years now, but also in Sweden we have a system where if one person breaks the law many times, they try to take it all at once. So since we keep on doing new stupid things, they have to get a new date for. So
in other words, if you keep on breaking law all the time, you will never come to trial.
It's been that way until now. I don't know. If I do break real laws, I guess they'll have a little more a hurry. Einar, please.
Thank you. Thank you, first of all. I'd like to follow up your question. I think that you've recruited it a little bit too easy, saying that people know what are just laws and unjust laws. The problem is that you know what we're doing, we know what we are doing when we're breaking laws. But the problem with being a martyr also is that it creates personal problems that you might not be aware of when you're sitting at the Frihetsfronten pub at 2 o'clock in the morning discussing whether we should sell liquor, whether we should resist a draft or something like that. For someone who is 17 years old and who's very impressed with this movement, it might be a shock when he actually is facing his parents and saying, "Hey, I got a
to a non-sentence because I'm resisting the draft. And I would like to ask you, don't you consider this a moral problem, a moral dilemma sometimes, to actually advocate to young people that they should be martyrs without telling them what the actual consequences might be, even if in the long run it has good effects? They're the ones sacrificing at this moment, and they're the young ones, and they very often don't know what they're doing. That's my first question for your question. Second thing, I think we should discuss, that Jim and I have been discussing, and also Chris and I yesterday, is that 5 years ago, it was very easy to shock people simply by being libertarian. It was very easy to get invitations to ordinary parties, like you mentioned, and just sit down and tell them what you thought, because that shocked them. It's someone who's against taxes, it's someone who would like to legalize drugs, someone standing up against the draft, things like that. That doesn't shock people anymore, because we've had a very, very positive development in the society. General opinion has changed. Maybe I'm a bit too optimistic, but I think that everyone, almost everyone, is some sort of libertarian today, even if they don't always see the political implications. No one is actually against liberty anymore. And what I would like to ask you is, I think that this has created a problem for us. We in some way have to change the strategy. Is it two ways out of this? Either we take an intellectual way and start to tell people why they've got rights, because everyone believes they've got rights today. You don't surprise anyone by saying that he has a right to life, liberty, and so forth. Or you could try the law-breaking method instead. I'd like to hear you elaborate a bit on this problem as society and real opinion has changed. Third thing, you mentioned in your introductory remarks another organization, namely FMSF, which was and is the only libertarian organization for students. So I thought that the idea behind the Freedom Front, and also behind the New Liberal, was that we should fill the vacuum of a libertarian organization for non-students. Then, according to the program, your speech is called the Student Rebellion. Does this mean that the Freedom Front is competing with FNSF for students as well, or do you try to fill the vacuum for non-students? Could you please explain that?
Yeah, we compete with FMSF on engaging the students very much, we do. But still, I would say that the most important thing is that those that believe in the political party system, they can join the FMSF, fine. Those that don't believe in it, they can join the Freedom Front. And those that want to get a good place to make a career within the moderate party, I think FMSF is great. Very nice said of me. There were two more questions here that I tried to answer. Of course, some years ago, it was very, very interesting to listen to those strange people that said so stupid things that no one ever could believe in. And it's not that extreme anymore. But still, I think that you're totally wrong when you say that our new goal could be to prove intellectually why people actually have rights, since they already know that they do. Because people don't. People don't know that they have rights. People, 99% still believe that they have a moral duty to follow the laws that the majority decides. They believe in the right of the many to rule a country and to rule their lives too. And of course it's more difficult, and you have to work to some extent in other ways, but I still believe that the civil disobedience works fine. and is a good thing to do. But to combine it, to try to convince people that they should not pay taxes, and that they have no moral duty to pay taxes, and that they should try to get a, what do you call it, svartjobb, job on the black market, so you can keep your money out of the state. That is very controversial in Sweden. And the thing is that we have to try to get through in media and just tell people those things. I still think that is the main thing we should do. Young people, 17-year-old, and we tell them to not join, to not accept the draft or so. Well, if the state tries to use a 17-year-old in the military force and try to use him by force, I think that person probably also is capable of deciding over himself. And the important part is that this question leads to where a kid starts to get grown up, and when the parents don't have the right to decide over the kid anymore, and so on. And that's another problem, but still I think that it's rather upblown and is not very important in this discussion.
You don't find a moral dilemma?
No, I don't find a moral dilemma at all. Not at all.
Do you agree with the tax laws, and or do you break the tax laws? And if you do, what are the consequences? And if not, what do you think they would be if you did disobey the tax laws?
Well, I break them as much as I can, and I tell people to do the same. The problem is that you're not a very good freedom fighter from within four walls. I mean, from prison, you can't do very much, and you always have to measure pros and cons.
Does that mean you think they would more strongly enforce the tax laws than they do the radio and the drinking beers?
To some extent, yes. If I was caught with not having paid taxes and refusing to pay them, even after getting caught, they will put me in prison for sure. And it's so stupid. I refused to make my declaration of income declaration. And what they did is that they just guess how much I probably could have had as an income. So now I've got some 55,000 kroners that I'm supposed to pay in tax that I owe the state. And the thing is, I didn't even earn any money that year. I was just working with the FMSF or FMS and the Freedom Front, and I didn't earn a nickel. So, and also the problem is what they do then is that when I work, if I get a proper work, the state will be there and grab the money before I even get it. So it's really a tough problem to keep your own money. And what I do now then, of course, is that I have created a system where the little money I earn straight, so it doesn't go through the state. And
So you are, in fact, breaking the laws, and the only enforcement is some giving you paperwork saying you owe them more.
No, not that. Those are two different things. The money I earn that the state doesn't know, they don't know, and they have tough time finding it out. But when they do know, or when they do think that I did have an income, and I just refused to declare how much an income I had, then they just grab a figure and try to. Well, they've already taken some from my bank account that I had forgotten there, so the state came and took it, and that's what happens.
So you still owe them money?
Yes, but it's so stupid. I just hate all those papers, and it really makes me feel bad to have to declare how much I earned and all this, and fill in those stupid forms. So I didn't do it for that reason, and it turned out not so good. And therefore I have a guy who knows law and all this, who tries to help me to get out on the good way, because you cannot, in Sweden, you cannot get successfully out of such a thing.
Where can you?
I was very interested in your bar, which plays very industrial noise music, by the way, and I like that pretty well. But with respect to the educational aspects of the situation, how much do you feel the ideas are being transmitted to the casual person who comes in? And are you specifically trying to make a big effort, a medium effort, or just a very relaxed effort? And what do you think the effects are on the average person who just wants there to drink after 3 and have a party?
Well, both things. Of course, when they come there after 3 o'clock, they've been out since 10 and they're very drunk. We have problems convincing them, but still they start discussions, and that's okay. They buy books sometimes, and of course we try to use, to some extent, the walls to get information through and blow up quotations and so on. But the most important thing I believe is that those people understand what we stand for just because we do it. And those of them that are interested in ideas, they get a positive feeling from the beginning.
Have you contacted or gotten in contact with any artists or musicians or authors from this bar who have indicated to you that they were interested in those ideas? I mean, because I think your earlier comments about the artists and the culture molding people are very pertinent.
A lot. And I mean, young people, young journalists, for example, they mostly work with, I mean, they don't decide very much on the magazines or in the newspapers today. But they go there and they know us and they know what we stand for, and they believe that it's right and that it's good. And in 10 or 15 years, those guys will be in a deciding position in the media. Authors, yes, and musicians. We have had several concerts or musicians playing there, so it works that way.
Right. About taxation, knowing that you're not an anarchist or in favor of some limited state.
I'm not sure.
Well,
okay.
then you have a problem. I haven't seen any reasonable example of how you can finance a state without taxation or influence with people liberty. And I think obviously you have to, if you are going to have a state, you have to have taxation. And then you have a moral problem. If you're in favor of human rights all the way, how can you unite that with taxation? First, and secondly, if you're in favor of taxation, isn't taxation basically then should be a good law? The level of taxation in Sweden today is very high, but obviously, if you're in favor of a state finance or taxes, you have to consider that law as being good on a basic level.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Maybe I can say that. Okay, 2% tax to pay for those things that cannot be arranged on the market. But that does not ever make me having a duty to pay taxes that actually are used to decide my own choices, or that are used to enforce different morals or so on other people. And also you can view this in a pragmatical way, that the state and the political system almost always tries to widen its sphere. And they do that all the time until they come to a point where it's not possible for them anymore. And a very effective way to make that point on a better place, to make it earlier, is civil disobedience and refusing to pay taxes. So that's my answer.
But if you're 2% taxation, 2% taxation is also violation of the right to property.
Yeah.
And if you're in favor of that, it's my opinion, that's not human right, that's a sort of human target. Why do I have to pay 2% of my income in tax? Because you think there are certain institutions that are not producing on the market.
We published a book called The Vision of a Civilized Society, and we declared that in future we would not like there to be any taxes at all, because of course all taxes are violating people's rights.
Well, how are you going to finance the state? You're not kicking us off.
Can I mention something about this?
Yeah, please.
Well, with respect to financing the state, one of the key things that the state does is enforce contracts. And you can, in fact, consider a user fee on every contract as a fee for the enforcement. And that user fee might be, say, 10% of the value of your contract with an employer, such that for you to have a contract that's enforceable by this enforcement agency, you have to agree to give 10% of your income from the employer for this enforcement purpose. Now, that might be very similar to a tax. But if you don't pay that, you don't have to. But then if you don't pay, you don't have any recourse to law. And you might consider a situation like that in a hypothetical sense or in a very real sense, and allow people to choose. And I think that there are ways to have contracts and have essentially, I would call an enforcement mechanism essentially a government without strict taxes in that sense.
Well, you can also have voluntary taxes.
Well, those are contributions to the government.
Contributions, right.
Well, you have a problem. I can enforce my contract. It should be forbidden to enforce contracts with other entrepreneurs in the state. Because then you violate the right to liberty, the right to have a company enforcing contracts. You can't have, in some sense, you violate people's rights. If you're in favor of rights all the way, you're going to violate them by having a state. And I don't think say it's right or wrong, but I think it's a problem if you are for natural rights. You can't be in favor of the state.
In any natural rights, there's still an enforcement mechanism. And at some level, you're going to have enforcement mechanisms disagreeing with other enforcement mechanisms. And there's going to be a final enforcement mechanism. And that final enforcement mechanism might as well be called a state. Because you and your enforcement mechanism are in a disagreement with me and my enforcement mechanism. So our ideas are either we come to some higher level of enforcement mechanism where we arbitrate and decide on agreement, and if we don't agree and we don't agree and we don't agree, and we're willing to fight over it, then we have a fight, or there's some final enforcement mechanism that says this is the solution for you two, and we, this final enforcement mechanism, are going to impose it. And I think that happens, in any realistic sense. But I think there are opportunities for government services to be totally user fee based and thereby not taxed per se.
Okay.